Occultism teaches that it is presence of the liver which distinguishes the animal from the plant, and that mystically certain small creatures having power of motion but no liver are actually plants in spiritual consciousness. The liver is under the control of the planet Mars, which is the dynamo of the solar system, and which stands a red animating ray to all the evolving creatures within the solar scheme. The philosophers taught that the planet Mars, under the control of its regent Samael, was the transmuted sin body of a solar logos, which originally had been the dweller on the threshold of the divine creature, whose energies are now distributed through the fire of the sun. Samael, incidentally, was the fiery father of Cain, through whom a part of humanity has received the flame of aspiration, and are thus separated from the sons of Seth. Whose father was Jehovah. The Egyptians considered the juice of the grape to be more nearly like human blood than any other substance. In fact, they believed that the grape secured its life from the blood of the dead who had been buried in the earth. Concerning the subject, Plutarch writes as follows: the priests of the sun at Heliopolis never carried any wine into their temples. That makes sense why they call it spirits. And if they made use of it at any time in their libations to the gods, it was not because they looked upon it as in its own nature acceptable to them, but they poured it upon their altars as the blood of those enemies who formerly had fought against them. For they looked upon the vine to have first sprung out of the earth after it was fattened, with the carcasses of those who fell in the wars against the gods. And this, say they, is the reason why drinking its juice in great quantities makes men mad and besides themselves, filling them as it were with the blood of their own ancestors. Jeez, that was heavy. Isis and Osiris, the magicians of the Middle Ages, were aware of the fact that they, by their occult powers, could control any person by first securing a small amount of his blood. If a glass of water be left overnight in a room where someone slept, the next morning the water will be impregnated to such an extent with the psychic radiation of that person that anyone understanding the modus operandi may find contained in the water a complete record of the life and character of the person who occupied the room. These records are transmitted and preserved in a subtle substance which the medieval transcendentalists called the astral light, an ever-present, all-pervading, fiery essence which preserves intact the record of everything transpiring in any part of nature. The streaming rays pouring from the face of the sun have caused it to be associated with the lion, because of the shaggy mane of this king of beasts. The golden-haired savior gods of many nations subtly signify by their uncut locks the solar radiations. The sun was the king of heavens, and earthly rulers desiring to advertise their terrestrial power delighted to be considered as little suns, their vassals being viewed as planets basking in the glory of the central light. The highest of each kingdom in nature was also considered symbolic of the sun. Hence, the scarab beetle, being the most intelligent of all insects, the eagle the most aspiring of all birds, the lion the strongest of all beasts, were considered fitly symbolic of the solar disk. Thus the Moguls chose the lion for their standard, while Caesar and Napoleon used the eagle to symbolize their dignity. The crowns of kings were originally bands of gold with radiating points to symbolize that they partook in part of the divine power vested in the sun. As time went on, the crown was conventionalized, its surface was encrusted with jewels, a number of its points were changed, and its evidence resembling to the sun was lost. The halo, so often seen pictured around the heads of both Christian and pagan deities and saints, is also emblematic of the sun power. According to the mysteries, there comes a time in the spiritual unfoldment of man when the mysterious oil, which has been moving slowly up the spinal column, finally enters the third ventricle of the brain, where it becomes beautifully golden in color and radiates in all directions. This radiance is so great that it cannot be limited by the skull, and it pours out of the head, especially from the back of the neck, where the uppermost vertebrae of the spine articulates with the condyles of the occipital bone. It is this light pouring out in a fan-shaped aura around the posterior part of the head that has given rise to the halos of saints and the nimbus so often used in religious art. This light signifies human regeneration, and it forms part of the auric bodies of man. The auras have greatly influenced the color of the form of the garments used in religious ceremonies. The robe of blue and gold, which Albert Pike speaks of, and the vestments of the different degrees in the hierarchies of all religious orders, are symbolic of these invisible emanations, forms which surround man, their colors changing with his every thought and feeling. By means of these auras, the priests and philosophers of the ancient world chose those disciples who would do credit to their teachings. The robes of glory of the high priest of Israel are all symbolic, as Josephus, with his oriental instruction, has shrewdly noted. The plain white linen symbolizes the purified physical nature. The many-colored garments represent the astral body. The blue raiment, the spiritual nature, and the violet, the mind. For it is the color made up of two shades, one spiritual and one other material. In the Egyptian mysteries, it was not uncommon to show the rays of the sun ending in the human body, or the human hands. One of the chairs recently found in the tomb of Tutankhamun showed a sun with its rays ending in human hands. Among the ancients, the hand was the symbol of wisdom, because it was used to raise the fallen. And no man is so low in his estate as an ignorant man. The physical proclivities of the sun and its water-drawing power were used to symbolize a spiritual process in which the divine nature of man was raised or illuminated and drawn upward by the heat of the sun. These emanating rays spreading the threefold spiritual power as love, wisdom, and truth. That's the end of part 1. I'll be back with part 2. Part 1 is almost half the book with the introduction, but thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for your kind comments. I just appreciate everybody who subscribes and tunes in to my show. And I might break this up. I might try to upload it all at once, but either way, I appreciate you. Thank you. One love, one vibration.